It's time for some spooky boys, my dudes. Today's video is all about skeletons and how to use them in your campaign. My last video on goblins did really well, so I thought I'd follow up and continue this series, now covering skeletons. I hope by the end of this video I've given you guys some ideas for your skeletons and how you want to use them in your games. Make sure you guys like and subscribe the video if you're enjoying the series so far. Skeletons have always been a favourite for me, because in my games I play them very differently from how I see a lot of people, especially in 5th edition, running them. Skeletons in my campaign are mindless, brain dead, unable to conceive general thought. They are always led by either a Necromancer or some sort of ancient power that allows the dead to indiscriminately rise. I'm still working on developing some new mechanics for skeletons in my campaigns, but I figured I'd share what I've done so far with you guys. Let's look at the skeleton stats in 5th edition. I get a lot of questions from people asking me why I play D&D 5e and not Dungeon Crawl Classic or Old School Essentials or Labyrinth Lord or anything else. The reason I do is because I found it tricky to find players who actually want to play on other systems. So instead I play the most popular system, homebrew the shit out of it, and convert people from 5th edition to this more OSR styled game. I also believe, despite its many flaws, D&D 5e is very streamlined, it's straightforward to learn, and easy to modify. I will eventually do a video on my homebrew rules for 5th edition, so you guys can use them and abuse them if you're running D&D. But currently I don't have a great document or a PDF written up that includes everything that I do, so you'd have to wait a little while for that. Anyway, skeleton stats. In the base game, skeletons move quite quickly, are able to deal significant damage to a low level character, and have enough hit points to take a couple of hits. They have vulnerability to bludgeoning damage, which means maces and hammers will deal double damage when striking them. They are immune to becoming tired or exhausted, and are also unable to be poisoned. They have a basic intelligence and a relatively reasonable wisdom score. Let's see how I do it. As you can see, there is an immediate difference. We've lowered the AC slightly, we've removed the con modifier from their HP, we've given them resistance to slashing and piercing to counteract the bludgeoning vulnerability, and we've also given them immunity to necrotic. Seeing as it was necrotic energy that empowered them, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me that such magic could destroy them. I've actually allowed a cleric in my campaign to change Toll the Dead from necrotic damage to psychic, to more appropriately represent the spell that could, well, Toll the Dead. Most of my undead either have resistance or immunity to necrotic damage. I actually allow high level undead to heal from necrotic energy, which allows spells like Circle of Death to be far more terrifying when used on both allies and enemies at the same time. It weakens the party but strengthens the enemy. Really cool. I've also lowered their intelligence to 1 and their wisdom to 4. This more appropriately represents the level of brain dead that I want in my undead. If players in my campaign stumble upon a group of skeletons, they will attack and make very obvious decisions. This is cool because it allows my party to outwit them and come up with strategies to defeat them, like luring them into traps. And I mean, on the other hand, because they're brain dead, because they're mindless, they have no intention of retreating, and they will fight until they are destroyed or driven away with abilities like, turn undead. This means that if the party accidentally alerts too many skeletons, they'll be forced to flee, or they'll have to destroy every single one of them. Many of my sentient creatures have self-preservation, something you don't really see in a lot of D&D games, which means that they're likely to retreat once half or more of them have been defeated, or surrender when things are looking rough. A lot of my players like to try and intimidate things, especially like bandits and goblins, to force them to put down their weapons or run away, just so the party can kind of conserve resources, right? Skeletons, on the other hand, hell no, right? I've also lowered their dark vision. I really don't like dark vision in my campaigns, especially for PCs. I just feel like it's a bit of a crutch. And getting dark vision with your class just feels a bit cheap. I still do allow people to learn the spell and have the spell dark vision, but that requires a spell slot to cast, which I feel like is fine because, I mean, it's a resource at the end of the day to be able to cast spells and use spell slots. The actions are currently pretty simple, as you guys can see. Because skeletons use a variety of weapons, I just named the attacks varied weapons. I've also included a ×2 and a ×4 version for when the party fights larger groups or hordes of skeletons. So it just like speeds up combat and adds a little bit more drama when, like, you know, 4 goblins are just clobbering a PC. It's pretty cool. This might seem quite simple in comparison to what I've done with goblins, but skeletons in my campaign can be empowered by necromancers who are on the battlefield, kind of like an evil bard. I'll show you guys the control undead feature that I've given to my more basic cultists, which is a bit of a game changer, if I'm being honest. It's definitely changed how a lot of these fights go and how the players think about what decisions they want to make. I've got more powerful versions of this for high-level necromancers, but I'm not really going to cover that in this video. I'll probably cover that on like a cultist video, so to speak. The cool thing about it is that when this ability is used, my players become fixated on taking the Acolyte out, and you can't really blame them, can you? Fortunately for the Acolyte, there are typically a dozen or more skeletons in the way to stop that from happening. Moving on. Skeletons can be used in many different ways to provide challenges for your party. In my campaign, the land is cursed with necrotic energy, which causes the dead to rise. People burn their dead, consecrate their towns and temples, and go on witch hunts to find anybody suspicious enough to be a cultist. But in your campaign, perhaps necromancers and skeletons are more of a backdrop, something you want to explore in a single adventure or two. Animated skeletons typically need a reason to exist, so when using skeletons, consider whether there is a cultist or a necromancer nearby who has raised them. Where have the skeletons actually risen from? Were they soldiers, mercenaries, adventurers, ancient heroes? You can really play around with a lot of different ideas, and I've created so many different versions of skeletons over the years that are far more powerful than the basic skeleton, which I can deploy against parties ranging from a lower level to a much higher level. Because my campaign has a more passive necrotic energy that raises people, killing the lead cultist or necromancer isn't going to destroy all the undead. But that actually might be a really cool idea for your games. Having the magic that imbues and animates the dead be permanently linked to the consciousness of the person who raised them. Players will obviously focus on defeating the leader, but I mean, that sounds really, really cool. It reminds me of like the White Walkers from Game of Thrones, how they could rise the dead, and when you destroyed one of them, all of the whites would immediately fall. I have so many cool stories about running skeletons and undead, such as a battle where the party held off 200 men-at-arms, only for those men to be risen by necromancers at the rear of the battle. The party were deploying spells like Wall of Fire, Dawn, Fireball to destroy as much of the enemy as they could. High-level players are fucking OP. And if you guys have any cool stories about using skeletons or other undead in your campaigns, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I've really enjoyed engaging with you guys, and I'm hoping to continue to make videos and content for you guys in 2023. I'll see you guys next time on Loki's Lair. Peace.